This episode of the Social Workers Rise podcast is partially brought to you by the 11th Annual Addictions Conference, Inclusive Recovery, Addressing Diversity and Co-Occurring Disorders. Check out the link in the show notes for more information. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Social Workers Rise. It is your host, Catherine here. I am really excited to be back with you. I took a break during summer just to relax, clear my mind, clear my head, get refocused. And I find that I take breaks from my podcast often. So I'll take one for sure during the summertime and then also during the winter time. It just helps me to reset and to get passionate again because there's a lot that goes into producing podcasts and your girl gets tired. I get tired. I get brain fog and I'm like, I don't know what to talk about. This is just feeling like too much. So it's always good for me to have some breaks and to come back fresh, which I am really excited that you are here today. We are on episode 182, and today we're going to be talking about managing anxiety around your new internship. So this is for you if you are going into a social work internship for your bachelor's level or for your master's levels. There are anxieties around both. So make sure to listen in and make sure to send this episode to someone you know who is also entering into an internship, because we are not about gatekeeping around here. We're about sharing information and helping each other rise. And it takes a whole community to do that. So I just want to start out with validating. If you are feeling anxious around your new internship, I hear you. You are not alone. This is completely 100% normal to feel anxious and nervous because there's so many unknowns, right? I talk with my therapy clients all the time about how it's so hard to plan and to know what to anticipate when you just don't know what to anticipate, right? And that causes anxiety. And so the more information that we have, the more that we can plan, the more that we can just be prepared to be unprepared, then the less the anxiety is going to be. I don't know about you, but I've talked to a lot of social workers, and I know, reflecting back on my own experiences, there was a lot of anxieties around starting new internships because there's just so many questions, right? One, first and foremost, how am I going to balance this all? So when I was in school for my bachelor's and for my master's, I had to work. So I wasn't able to just stay at home and coast and be a full-time student. I also had to work to pay my bills because nobody else was going to be paying my bills for me. So I was really worried about how am I going to balance this all? I already have a job. I am tight on money because, these social services agencies, they're not paying entry-level people very much. So you got to keep your job, you got to keep your hours, and we got to figure out how to factor in this internship and all the classes and make time for studying and writing papers, reading, all of the things that come with college. So if you are worried about that, I'm going to offer you some tips here, and I'm going to share some stories about what helped me going through this stage in life. Another worry that you might have is you might actually be disappointed that you weren't assigned an internship with your dream population. Maybe you know that you really want to work with kids and you got assigned to hospice, where most people are very, very I'm like, how do I say this? I say older, elderly, like fine wine, right? So if you are in that spot and you are like, gosh, why did they do this? Because this is not the population that I want to work with, and you're feeling frustrated and disappointed, totally validating this. But there are some good things, and we will also go into that as well in this episode. Another common concern, like the third most common concern that I hear people talk about, is self-care and not getting burnt out, which is real. I've been burnt out 2.5 times. I don't recommend it. And we will also talk about this because I'm really passionate about you taking care of you in order for you to show up as your best self for your clients, for your colleagues, for the team, for your family, for your personal life, living the quality of life that you envision, that you dream of, and you cannot do that from a place of burnout. So I'll start out first with sharing about my internship. My first internship was in an elementary school. And I was super stoked because everybody's talking about social work in schools and it's so amazing. And you get summers off. And I'm like, yes, give me the summers off. I love children. Never worked with them a day in my life. But I mean, they're so cute. How it can't be that hard, right? Okay. I learned a lot in that first internship. And I never went back to schools again because I learned that this population is just not for me. I am not a kid person. I have a kid, but I am just not a kid person when it comes to professional social work. And that is okay. That is okay. Do not let anyone, even yourself, make you feel bad about not loving the population that you're working with. Yes, I love children. They're so sweet. They're just not my ministry. They're not my calling. Do not send me the children. Okay. And that's okay because I know that there are other populations out there that I completely rock at. It's amazing. I jive with them. They jive with me. It's all good. So, first lesson, if you are with a population and you're not jiving with them, that is okay because this is a learning opportunity for you to know, hey, this is not your jam, but there are other jams out there for you. It is okay. And vice versa. If you are with a population that you know you didn't want to work with, there are still a lot of learning opportunities. For example, me working in schools, I learned, okay, I thought I wanted to work with them. Turns out I don't. If you already know you don't want to work with this population, hear me out. I was able to learn a lot about how the school systems work. I was able to learn about what children experience in the schools, how they're able to access or not access social workers, and the challenges that social workers have while in the schools, and also the importance of the parent involvement. And if they're not being involved, then that is a problem as well. So there were so many lessons that I learned. I got a little bit of background and some insight into how this system works. So even though I work primarily with adults now, adults have children and their children are in school. And so it gives me a unique opportunity and a unique insight to be able to support the parents and to educate them and to give them tips like, okay, if the social worker is not doing this, maybe try X, Y, and Z, right? So it gives you a different perspective. And chances are the setting that you're working in, even though this is not going to be the primary setting you do for the rest of your life, for your career, there are going to be clients in the future that are going to encounter the setting that you are in. And it is going to be a gift to them that you have some experience and you know a little bit about how that system works. So even though you may not be in the best setting, your most favorite setting, take heart that there are still lessons to be learned, my friend. All right, next up. My second internship was affordable housing with seniors. And I actually loved this. I love affordable housing. It is a industry that we don't typically know very much about. It's not really mainstream talked about. So there was so much that I learned in this setting. Specifically, I was a service coordinator for seniors in affordable housing. And I love that job so much. It was a great fit. They ended up hiring me on after my bachelor's program. So I was able to work in affordable housing with children also for a period of time in after school programs. But again, they're not my jam. So I really didn't stay there very much. I think my boss saw that. And so I was there for 6 months working with kids in the after school program, which again, a lot of lessons learned there. But the main thing that I took away from this internship is at first I was like, ooh, seniors, I don't know, because I have my prejudices, right? Don't tell anybody, but everybody has prejudices. Okay. We all have these judgments about people that we don't really know, that we're not familiar with. My prejudice was actually kind of twofold because one, I grew up with my grandmother and she had just died. She died when I was 17. So she was like my mom. She died. And by the time I was in my bachelor's program, I don't know, this was only a couple years later. So it wasn't very long. And so I was worried that working with seniors is going to be depressing and it's going to be sad because they're all going to be dying and they're just so old. Like, what are they going to do? Okay, completely wrong, very ageist. I recognize this, but I share this with you in order to help you think about the prejudices that you may have about the populations that you're going in to work with. And these can actually be good or bad, right? For example, I had good prejudices about children in schools, which were wrong for me personally. And I had bad prejudices about the elderly, which again were wrong. And I ended up really enjoying working with seniors. So, again, if you are going into a place and you're like, ugh, I'm not really thrilled about this population because of whatever, right? Because of whatever prejudices you may hold. And you don't have to tell me, but I know that they're there. You and I both know that they're there, and it is normal. Okay. But what we need to do is recognize that they're there, because if we don't, that's when problems can happen. Right. So honor those, come in with an open mind, and really just do your best in these settings and know that you will be learning something about yourself and about your professional development either way. We're going to hit pause on this conversation real quick because the next time that you need continuing education units, I highly recommend the Therapist Development Center. TDC has helped more than 100,000 social workers pass their licensing exams, including myself. I love that TDC CE courses are engaging and relevant. Amanda and her experts give us clear and practical skills that we can immediately apply to our work. Some of my favorites are their Edge of Life Suicide Prevention course, where Amanda shares her personal experiences, and their They Did What? Law and Ethics course that looks at real cases where therapists faced formal disciplinary actions. We are legally required to take continuing education to increase our competence, and most other courses out there don't actually teach the material in a way that we can learn it, but TDC does. Check out the links in the show notes. This is also the time that I really had to get good about my time management, because this was a 16-hour internship all year. And I also had a full-time job and I also went to classes. And so I had to make sure that my schedule was on point, because I also had to take care of myself, do self-care, spend time with family, spend time with friends, have some sort of balance. What really, really, really helped me is getting an hourly planner. And you can do this on your phone. For me, I liked the paper planner because, well, one, the phones weren't very good back in 2009 when I did this internship. And two, I still use paper planner because there's just something about being able to write it down with a pen for me and be able to see everything just all laid out. That's just how my mind works. So if that is how your mind works, get yourself a paper planner that can be organized by time, because this is what would happen. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd think, okay, I'm going to internship. And then I have to come home and do homework and cook and go to the grocery store and do blah, 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 blah. So many things. And I would freak myself out, like, there's just no time. There's not enough time to do this all. What am I going to do? But once I was able to write everything down in my hourly planner, I was able to allocate, okay, travel time, an hour, because of course I lived in LA County. So of course everything takes an hour to do anything. And then I would write down the tasks that I would have to do. Okay, I would have to call people, make visits, and these things are going to take, calls are going to take an hour, visits are going to take 4 hours, and then notes are going to take another 2 hours. I'm like, oh, okay, that gives me enough time, because that would be 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know. I forget. But you get the point, is that when you can write everything down, you can see if you are realistically going to be able to get these all done. And there are some places on the flip side that like to gaslight you into thinking that you are not doing enough because they're giving you too much work that's not realistic to be done. So by organizing your day in this time frame, it helps you to see, okay, I can get these things done, and try to be realistic with yourself. Give yourself a little bit of extra time, because everything is going to take longer than you expect it to. Next up is my grad school internship. And this was, oh man, this was really great. I had a great experience here, and I had questions about myself here. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. I wasn't sure why the heck I signed up for this. I wasn't sure if I was going to be emotionally ready to handle this. And the internship was with hospice. Yes. So I mentioned before that my grandmother had died when I was 17. She was like my mom. I went into hospice, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can go into a nursing home, because my grandmother was in a nursing home. It was very traumatic, terrible experience. I don't know that I can do this. And I have my own traumas, and I thought this disqualified me from helping others, from doing a good job in the internship. And fortunately, I was able to talk with my supervisor, who's very supportive, very understanding, and really was able to help guide me and help me see that just because I had my own personal experiences with my family in a certain setting, it doesn't mean that it's going to impact me all the time, every day. I will be honest, going into the nursing home for the first time was rough, because all the nursing homes are kind of the same, to be honest. Nobody really wants to be there, right? So it was rough, but I realized that working with clients in that setting, even though I had my own personal experiences, it wasn't the same, because it's not my grandmother. I don't know these people, and they're complete strangers. And I'm there in a completely different role than granddaughter. And same thing for you. Even if you have had experiences within these different systems, whether they're good or bad, it's not going to be the same, because this isn't your family. This isn't your life that you are involved in, that you're trying to help. You have a completely different role that is objective. You're trying to help, you're trying to locate resources, and it's not as emotionally involved. If you find yourself getting emotionally involved with clients, with a client more than other clients, then definitely look at that, because there could be some sort of countertransference going on. There could be something deeper going on for you that you really need to talk about. And that is completely normal. Every single social worker I've ever met has had these experiences where it's like, wow, this client really reminds me of somebody I used to know, and I'm getting triggered, and I need to talk about this with somebody. So that is completely normal. And with that said, I will also say that if you are scared, if you are nervous about your internship, if you know that this is going to be hard, I'm going to validate, yeah, you're right. It's going to be hard. And you, my friend, can do hard things. You can have these hard conversations. With the right guidance and support and self-talk, you can do these things, because you have already done hard things. You have already overcome so many obstacles in your life. You are a fighter. You are a survivor. You are someone who has dedicated their life to helping others. And that does not come from a place of selfishness or greed. That comes from a place of you loving other people and you wanting to give your best. And by doing that, you put yourself into a lot of situations and you've probably had to overcome a lot of trauma, a lot of your own personal things that other people probably don't know about. And just because you have gone through these experiences, even if you have a mental health disorder yourself, even if you have addiction, it doesn't disqualify you from helping other people. If anything, these particular experiences amplify your ability to empathize with others, to connect with others, and to know what questions to ask that other people like me may not know because I don't have that same experience. I can't reflect on what was it that I needed at that time and how can I use this knowledge to help this person, right? And the last piece that I learned, especially with hospice, because this is a really heavy placement where there's death and grief and drama and family conflict and medical staff conflict and discrimination and all of these things, right? There's so many different issues that come up in all of our settings, right? Not just hospice, but any setting that you're in, any organization is going to have issues. It's going to have times where you're struggling, where you're like, what the fuck just happened? Did this really just happen? Yeah. Yeah. I've never experienced this before. Even to this day, I will tell you, I still get these situations that I'm like, I just don't know. I don't know. I got to call somebody because I need some help. So if you are in that spot, especially as an intern, I expect you to be in those spots. If not, if you never come into a situation where you're like, well, this is new, I have no idea what to do, then you're not in the right placement because you need to be in placements that help you to grow. So if you are ready to grow, you have to have a community, right? One of the things that really helped me the most, number one, that I would recommend when you're having a bad day in a difficult placement, there was a difficult visit, there was a difficult situation that you didn't know what to do. You don't know if you should have done something differently, if there's still more to do, if you've done everything. Call somebody, make friends with your colleagues there at work. Try to have a good relationship with your supervisor if you can, because at the end of the day, they get it. And they have probably experienced the same things. And if they haven't, they can at least brainstorm with you. They can validate with you. They could be like, all right, that is a really tough situation. And let's talk about it. And it helps you to debrief because your friends and family who aren't in this field, they're not going to get it. They're just going to look at you like a deer in the headlight, like, what have you gotten yourself into? This is crazy. So it really helps to have colleagues that are there, that are understand, that are able to support you when you need it, and vice versa. For you to be available to support other colleagues, because you're going to learn from these conversations as well. If people call you up and be like, hey, I just had this happen to me. What do you think about this? And you're like, wow, okay. What do I think about this? And try to help brainstorm, because sometimes it takes a person on the outside who's not emotionally involved, who can be more objective to see the dynamics at play. For example, during my first real, quote, real session after I graduated from grad school, I was in hospice. I got hired on at the company and they assigned me this new client, first client, right? I'm like stoked. I'm so excited. Okay, I got this. I can handle it. I have a freaking graduate degree. Like, there's nothing I can't do. Okay, wrong. Very humbling. So, long story short, I went in and I met this gentleman, very young. He had liver cirrhosis and from alcoholism. And he had also a female friend, girlfriend. I don't know what the dynamics were. Long story short, he had alcoholism and was manipulative, and she had borderline personality disorder and was also manipulative. And I didn't know. I had no idea what was happening because I had never encountered somebody who had borderline personality disorder. And I was just getting gaslighted all day. I'm like, they're lying on me. I'm like, what is happening? I was so baffled until I went to my supervisor and she's like, oh my goodness, why did you wait so long to come and talk to me about this? Because it was a whole shit show. It was like, yeah, there was a lot of fixing that needed to happen. So if I just validate this for you, normalize this for you. If there are things coming up, just talk about it with your supervisor. Write down notes. One other thing that I would write in my planner is every week we had the same time and day for supervision. On that day and time in that slot, I would write down what topics or clients, don't use their whole name or, identification because you still got to be HIPAA compliant, but what topics or situations that have happened that I need to talk about in supervision. And so this was an easy reminder for me to show up, to be prepared with things to talk about, because you don't want to come to supervision with a blank stare on your face and saying like, okay, I don't know what to talk about, because that's your job. Like, you as the intern need to have things to talk about. You need to take a stand in your learning. You need to be able to recognize, hey, I don't know much about this. Can we talk about it? So I hope that is helpful for you. Overall, if you are having anxiety, completely normal. We talked about balancing it all. What if you're not working with your ideal population? Could you get burnt out? And we talked about just kind of a lot of other random things that came up from the stories that I shared with you. I hope this was helpful. If it was helpful, again, please share this episode with somebody who is also in starting an internship, whether it's their bachelor's of social work, their master's of social work. Even LMFTs and counselors can benefit from this information. We are not about gatekeeping around here. And I thank you so much. Also, I do want to mention, if you want more information, you want to be connected with me and stay up to date with what's going on in the podcast, I do have an email list that you can subscribe to. I will instantly send you my list of over 100 jobs that you can do with your MSW. So definitely get on that list. The link is there in the show notes, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Social Workers Rise podcast. I want to give one final shout out to one of our sponsors, Social Work Wealth Con 2024. Thank you so much for your support of this podcast. Check out this conference in October with the link in the show notes.